And yesterday was yet another step in the evolution of his superstardom and incredible wealth, power, and hubris. Do you remember that football league that we've talked about called the XFL that was owned by Vince McMahon? And one of my wait to sees is there's a lawsuit between Vince McMahon and the commissioner of the XFL, who's Andrew Luck's father named Oliver Luck. And then the XFL declared bankruptcy. And what happens when you declare bankruptcy is this. Actually, I don't know that I've told this story. I think I have, how Peter Angelo sold the Orioles out of bankruptcy. Jeffrey Loria was the underbidder, meaning he bid $1 million fewer dollars than Peter Angelos, which is how Peter Angelos was now the owner of the Baltimore Orioles. You're welcome, Baltimore. $173 million back in 1990 something. 3 maybe for the Orioles. So The Rock, they were bankrupt and they got sold in a bankruptcy court. What happens when you declare bankruptcy is that it is incumbent upon the courts to sell whatever assets are still owned by the entity declaring bankruptcy and take that money and give it to the creditors. Like when a rich guy goes bankrupt, they take his yacht and his helicopter. They repossess his jet, jewelry. Remember when the Ponzi schemers get arrested and they're trying to put all the jewelry on them because maybe if you're wearing the jewelry, they don't take it, but it's not true. They do. Not that I know this personally. I've just seen it in movies, read about it in trade magazines. So the XFL had assets. Let's think about what the assets they had. Player contracts. No. Those players become creditors of the XFL. Banks who had lent money to the XFL. Is that an asset? No, that's a liability because they owe money to the networks because the games weren't shown. Now, if they have accounts receivable from the networks for games that were shown on TV, that would be an asset. What about any property they own? Any lease interests they have in stadiums? Merchandise that's in inventory. Trademarks, the XFL. Patents, copyrights, team names, deals with cities. Not a lot of tangible stuff, but yet you go to court and there's got to be someone who buys it, and if not, then the creditors, who would be coaches, players, networks, anybody who had given T-shirts or other merchandise on consignment and not gotten paid for it that had maybe been sold by the XFL, any of their intellectual property like their website. In any case, there was a draft. It really is like a draft where you sell. It's like an auction. We got word yesterday. This is good. The Rock bought the XFL out of bankruptcy. Ladies and gentlemen, The Rock, who people think may run for president. The Rock, who's the highest paid movie star in the land. The Rock is now the owner of the XFL for $15 million. So when I read that, I thought, wow, I can't believe The Rock wants to take on the NFL. It's not going to work. Why would he invest his money in the XFL? And then I read a little more carefully. The Rock and a venture capital group bought the XFL out of bankruptcy. How much money did The Rock put in? We haven't heard. I promise you, his financial investment was very low because what he's adding to the group who bought the XFL is his name, his fame, and his platform, and the hope that the XFL can rise again like the Phoenix and somehow start in 2021, which The Rock said they're going to. Will they? That's not the wait to see, but it could be. The wait to see is that The Rock's financial investment, when it comes out, and it will, is under $5 million. And I'm going to say it's way under. because he found a way to cut a deal to get a piece of the action because he's so rich and famous now from the days of his first house in Davie that he can sell his name. And so he did.